Hi, guys, and welcome back. Today is my solar return, and with that, I feel the desire to open up and share some percolating thoughts and ideas that are happening for me that haven't fully formed yet, but are like you know in my field, and for some reason are wanting to come through as a share. uh I, you guys couldn't tell, I'm nervous. Okay, so I have shared what has been going on, obviously, from the beginning of my awakening. And as you guys know, it's a spiral and we're constantly moving in that direction. And, I'll be stuck in a loop of maybe a fear that I'm working through for some time. And maybe it takes a whole year for me to work through that fear. And in that process, my whole ascension is stalled or put on hold, because it doesn't move forward if I don't go forward through my through the things, which I'm gonna say this episode is gonna be one of those things that is fearful for me, which means that I know I'm supposed to do it. So so one of the fears that I've had, or one of the things that is definitely part of my journey and what I am here to work through and embody and understand and, kind of, I would say, take it up an octave is when we look at the traditional natal chart. Our placement of Saturn, and according to my beautiful sister Aisha, is the area in our birth chart, third dimensional, that we have to ascend through in order to keep moving up the spiral. Now, you're not going to get to the point of working with Saturn until you've done many turns on the spiral to work through your Venus, your Mercury, your Sun, and I forget which, I'm missing one. I don't know. But then she describes that to get past those traditional signs that are closest to us and our personality takes on, we have to break through our Saturn, which my Saturn is in Leo in the 11th house. Now, this energy is something that I even made a sheet for. Like, I knew what I was here to work on, not only through this Saturn point, but this is also in my chart where the last two eclipses were hitting. So Leo, which is generous, brave, entertaining, spontaneous. It's the sun. And the 11th house is groups, friends, social awarenesses, humanitarianism, technology, hopes, dreams, the future. So I knew that I have to work on letting people in the 11th house, and also being brave. Like if you guys have followed me, you'll know that I'm fine talking on the YouTube or the podcast, because I'm in my own energy. But can I bring that energy out into the world and still be myself and still be, able to, let's say, help or facilitate or I would call it illuminate. That was my Saturn. And you guys have known this story. Like, me as a third dimensional being was very introverted. And that actually would be the absolute worst or last thing that I would choose for my path. Which means, of course, I have fear around it. And that means that, of course, it's the work that I'm here to learn, and what I need to move through. So in this turn of my spiral this year, when this came up, I knew, like, okay, I am working, I believe that as we come to these points in the crossroads, that the right situations are going to come in to help us either diminish that fear and work through that fear, or it's going to still show up, but we're going to reject that thing. We're going to hold back from it. So my Saturn has been working with me for, I think, about 3 years. and the first level of it, I would say, is creating a podcast. So, one of my bees is here to say hi. Hello. Okay, so my first level of working with the Saturn placement that I have is starting a podcast, like putting myself out there, being brave for groups, for social, experiences, through technology and through hopes and dreams in the future. Okay. All of that, I would say, encompasses the idea of creating a podcast. And that is exactly my Saturn. That was the first turn of the spiral. Then the second one, like almost exactly a year later, was that I needed to get onto YouTube and show my face. Okay, that was the next one. And I remember when I did that for the first time, it was literally on my phone, and I used that as my camera because I didn't have one. And I didn't think about it. I just did it because I knew I don't want to do that. It's terrifying, and it's not something that I'm capable of. So that, as I know, anything that I'm fearful of, I've got to dive into it. Now, the next turn of the spiral was creating an energy tribe or an energy group that was of like vibrational souls that felt drawn to me, which, as anyone that you're drawn to, you carry a piece of their fractal or their energy in you, and it's just like this turning on of a beacon. And that's why we're attracted to certain, let's say, people, whether if it's through social media or even in our lives, even your partners. If you're attracted to them, they're part of your soul family. So the next turn of the spiral for me was to start that energy group. And I stayed pretty comfy in there for about 2 years. And then it was changing, and I knew it was changing, but it was like I don't know, like me dragging my feet. So first it started to change in that I could feel in the energy group that we needed to tighten things up. It felt like there were leaky energies, that there were people in the group that, maybe came out of curiosity and not feeling that like soul connection. And for me personally, I can tell when someone is stuck in their own spiral, and I can tell when someone is just in the wrong net, and I still hold space for that because I feel like, is it wrong? I don't think it's wrong. Like there's a lesson for each person in that experience. Let's say on their side, learning discernment. On my side, on expanding my my capacity to hold space for people that are not in my soul family. So there was definitely learning for myself. And there we went through many iterations of kind of like really getting the message that it was time to do another cleaning or another like spring cleaning. and then even in that, I've gotten in my body to the place where I'm pulling away from it. Now, this is a really hard thing to even experience and talk about because it's like, how could I pull away from a group of souls that feel like me, like why would I do that? And I have been dancing with this for the last probably 6 months and trying to really understand like, where is my energy best supporting others and also in alignment with why I'm here. So I've been in the actual chat group pulling back on how much I contribute, which, at the end of the day, I feel like as long as there's a container holding people if they need it, that to me is like, this is like the third dimensional way to say it, but that makes me feel like that box can be checked. Okay, so incoming, maybe, I'm sure not my final spiral on this, but another experience of it was the whole expansion of creating gateways and allowing energy to move through me in person and collaborating with groups, with people that came in through the podcast as a soul family member, or I would say fractal energy, and working with them to create something that is 11th house energy. And as I moved towards that, I knew right away, because Richard has been wanting me to create these retreats for a long time, probably a year and a half at least. And I have been resistant to it. Like, I've been like, I'm not ready. I don't know if this is the right thing to do, like dragging my feet. But when this energy came through of this group experience of me having fractals help me, and not just help me, but me help them through this huge leap, it felt very aligned. And as I've talked about, the energy just has flown through each of us. But going into that experience, I had it reflected in a few ways that this was going to be a big opening for me, because I'm taking my Saturn energy and I've moved through the spiral with it. Like, I keep revisiting it and upping the game, but that this particular time, this time around the spiral, was going to feel and be something different for me. Now, I can go into like, were two per kind of readings, predictions that for me, until I experienced it for myself, I could only hold it as a reflection, right? I can't, with everything, and I've talked about this, when we are starting to incorporate an energy, it will feel as if it's like a spirit guide, which is outside of you helping you, but really it's you helping you. So I can, when I'm moving up into an experience, I had the reflections showing me this is what's, going to be taking place, but I looked at it as a reflection, just that, like how you would say a spirit guide. It's a message that I can see, and maybe I deeply trust the sources that it came from, but I can't hold it yet. Like, it's outside of me. And the whole point of Ascension is to understand, again, we're here, all those little things that are outside of us, we're here to incorporate them as actually walking in this vessel with us. So, what it was said is that I was going to like have this incorporation of fractals of myself. And I don't know what was going to happen from that. Like, I knew that was going to happen. I had a dream about having an embryo implanted into my uterus, and my friend had a like a download about it, and she also picked up on that us meeting in October was going to be that, like, all of this energy that is I've been holding as outside of me, right, in the form of these souls. I was going to do that thing which I'm talking about, where you have to incorporate it. And for me, white butterfly is here. For me, that means like a huge up-leveling, a huge jump, because how do you go from something being outside of you to you taking it in as you? Like, you have to have a full shift in perspective. So as that was coming up for October, and I was getting these messages, and I was like, oh, okay, I can see how you guys are seeing that. I don't know. Like, let's see what happens. I don't know. So when we got to the gathering, we each pulled a card and an oracle spray to go with us. Not an aura spray. I said oracle. And mine is the rainbow unicorn. And right away, I started to realize, like, oh, this is, let me give a little spray while we're talking about her. Right away, I knew, for me, what is this, like, what is, again, this is outside of me. What is the unicorn, rainbow unicorn? How do I incorporate it? Because everything that, like, I'm going to keep bringing back to this, everything that we are looking at and seeing as outside of us is us. So I'm like, okay, rainbow and unicorn. For me, rainbow is the full spectrum. It's understanding that to become fully incorporated, like, I have, I've done this in my own soul, but the next level for me, based on, again, I believe my Saturn placement, I needed to incorporate my fractals, my soul family, and take them in as me. So this rainbow unicorn aura spray was reminding me that I need to incorporate the spectrum, the whole rainbow of every soul, like let's say every mixture that every soul in that group was carrying. And I was like, okay, like, let's see. And you know, this is another thing, like, what are the signs? Like, as I'm going into that experience, I'm getting signs, you know, I had the dream. I'm getting two separate channelers giving me the same message, and me understanding that something is going to occur. But I have to go into this like trusting, number one, that I'm ready to receive whatever's to come. And number two, like, this kind of, it formed on its own, but each of us had to say yes to it. So like the way I feel it, and this is my experience, is I feel those other two souls said yes to help me in my experience of birthing myself. And I know that sounds like, what? And I haven't even said this to them. But like, we all are helping each other. But in this particular thing, I'm just giving you my perspective of what happened. And I'm mainly wanting to talk about what happened afterwards to my body and what I'm moving through. So, but in our soul contracts, these souls, all of them that showed up in this container were saying like, oh yeah, that's right. We agreed. We're going to meet at this time, this date, to help this person embody more. So that's what I feel happened. And I even went through the full extreme of pulling this, this state of, like, how did I end up here? I'm not worthy of this. And it was like this full swing back so that I could have the momentum to like push into the next, like take that leap over the threshold. But I remember sitting in that container and just totally crying with this energy of, I had this feeling moving through me that I don't have anything to offer you girls. I don't even know how I find myself here. Like, I don't even know, like, and I remember saying, I don't get this energy often, but when it has set in and it feels deeply personal, like it is stringing on so many chords within my fear body that I need to share it. And they held space for me to let that energy through and help me to rebuild. So it's almost, okay, this is what it feels like. It feels like I shed that fear, that final like tick in the notch of, this doesn't resonate in my body anymore. Let me push it out to the souls that agreed to help me work through this together. And as I exhaled that energy, I could inhale their spectrums. And I didn't know, again, I'm bringing it back to the gateway and feeling like just so heard and held and nurtured, and also able to bounce right back from it and shed it. So that's how I work through my own experience in the gateway. But then after the fact, I told you guys I had my aunt and my cousin come into town, and then the day they left, I dropped sick like I have never experienced in my life. And I mean, I don't like, okay. I felt so sick that I couldn't breathe anymore. Like I couldn't lay down to sleep. I had to have my back up on pillows, and then I couldn't breathe, because what was happening is that mucus, the white blood cells, were gathering so deeply in the thymus area, the top part of my chest, that I couldn't breathe anymore. And I reached out to Zaneta and I told her, I think I'm dying. And she was like, yeah, you are. Now, this is where I get like, am I ready to talk about this? Am I ready to share this? Like, what's happening? And can I drop some breadcrumbs so that as you guys are going through this, you have somewhere to look too, you know. That's my only reason for wanting to go through this on this platform. You know, I share everything, but because I'm still like in the mix of it, it doesn't feel complete for me to share. But I know that because today is my solar return, I'm in Ophiuchus, I'm feeling that energy, I'm ready to try. I'm just going to say it. So, yes, then I was sick, like this, deathly sick, sorry, for about total 2 weeks. But the worst was about a week, full week, where I couldn't breathe. And I was coughing up so much stuff. I lost my voice for 3 days. And like Richard, I would be still like carrying on and talking to people. And I would like notice that I would push myself to speak, to, you know, be heard, because things were happening and there was creation happening with others. But then the moment that I would get off, I'd be like, I can't talk anymore. And Richard's like, you're a faker. And I was like, dude, no, I gave every ounce of my energy to be in that meeting, let's say, that I have to just retreat back in. So basically it felt like not only am I coughing up all the rest of the white blood cells I have, but I'm also changing the vibration in my throat. And you guys will notice I cough from time to time. I feel totally fine. I'm not sick, but that energy that's in the thymus is still releasing. So for me personally, it feels like my vocal cords are also changing. And Zaneta, you know, I in this experience, this holograph that we are experiencing, have a mentor that I can reach out when I need to, and have someone to give me guidance in some way. So I texted her and I told her, I think I'm dying. And she's like, yeah. And then she said, here's a song that I'm going to share with you that I think she said it's her favorite song, and it will help raise your vibration or help you feel better. And so I put on that thing on repeat, and Richard was like, what are you listening to? Because I, like, at that point, I'm desperate. I'm like, I don't know what's happening, but I can't breathe. And I even question at some point, like, should we go to the ER? Because, oh, mind you, I don't have COVID. I've tested for that. It's not COVID. So I'm thinking, like, should I go to the ER? I mean, then I know I'm just going to be sitting in the waiting room. What are they really going to do? You know, I'm running through the full scenario. And what would happen is I would fall asleep for like an hour until all that buildup happened again. And then I'd go through a whole nother coughing fit to release all of the stuff that had, you know, accumulated. And then I said while I'm laying in bed one day, I said to her, to Zaneta, you're like my North Star in the sense that I hope to one day be able to be as open as you are. I said something like that. And to me, she replied, do you know what the North Star is? And I was like, no. I mean, it's the brightest star, but I didn't. She's so amazing at teaching the mysteries, and it like she's only giving me what I'm ready for, which is perfect because already it's a lot. And if you guys have read her books, you know what I'm talking about. But she said the North Star is created once the Christos light body is anchored or it's activated. And I was like, okay. And she said, as above, so below. Once your Christ seed is seated, as above, like that's below, and as above, you are created as a North Star. And then she goes on to tell me this amazing story about Mary giving birth to Jesus in the manger. And she's like, she's like, this isn't new news, but I want to share this with you. Now, I'm going to tell you how she said it to me and how I have since like embodied it, but also she put this energy out into the world this week in a podcast that's called Mystical Christmas Ascension Teachings, Christos Light Body Activation. And I'm going to link it below because obviously she's going to go into way more depth than I'm going to here. I'm trying to bring in the actual experience. So she said that the whole idea of Mary giving birth to Jesus in a manger is the birth of the Christ seed. And I'm like, like, what? And then she sent me a recording that said, Mary is always depicted with a bull and a donkey next to the Christ, which is swaddled and in the manger, right? So she said the bull represents the liver, the donkey represents the spleen, and the energy of the Christ seed is anchoring in through your hara line into your belly, intestines. Some would call it the belly button. And in that space is where the Christ seed embodies. And she was saying, like, women don't have birth and create birth through their minds. It's in the womb space. It's in the stomach. Like, that is where the birthing happens. And it's no wonder that it is between, they're showing it in every painting, which I will put up a few here, of Jesus between a bull and a donkey. And then if you can't help but notice that the swaddling of Jesus actually looks like intestines. Like that kind of, it looks like cloth intestines. So then I was like, oh, well, that makes sense that I did a liver cleanse before I went to the gateway. And if you guys remember, and please go back, and if you haven't listened to that episode, this is a huge important piece if you feel called. It's called How to Crystal. I think it's Crystallining the Body. I had very many signs come in that this liver cleanse was my next step in my body activation. So I told that story in that episode, but the biggest point that had me like right away knowing that it was for me is it was delivered through this couple called the Gabriels. And you like, I feel like that's when someone taking like something to my head and just knocking me on the side of the head and saying, hello, here's a sign. So I did the liver cleanse, and with that, I extracted, I don't know, maybe like 30, 40 gallstones. And like as I've been cleaning my liver throughout the years, like each step has been, perfect for what I was going through. But this was the first time I was like physically like draining my the gallstones out. And then, as you guys know, I'm also going through a blood cleansing period right now, which the spleen is the organ found in virtually all vertebrates, similar in structure to the large lymph node. It acts primarily as a blood filter. The spleen synthesizes antibodies and its white pulp and removes antibody-coated bacteria and antibody-coated blood cells by way of the blood and lymph node circulation. Excuse me. The spleen is brownish in color and is located in the left upper quadrant of the abdomen. This comes from the Ascension glossary. So my blood has been already being filtered, and it's been, I told you guys I'm actually seeing a blood doctor right now to, in the third dimension, find out what's going on. I have a very low white blood count. Now, after this experience of being sick, I was supposed to get a test while I was in the middle of it. And I called them and told them, like, I don't think this would be a good time to do it because I'm really sick. And they agreed. So they postponed it for 2 weeks. So now I took the blood test about 4 days ago. And now I'm curious to see, do I have, like, has the white blood count gone down even more? But essentially, if you look at what Zaneta is saying, in that this is how the Christos comes into the light body, I already knew that intuitively, was cleaning the liver, have been working through the blood circulation and filter and trying to understand consciously what's happening to my body so that the seed could anchor. Now, I know that not everyone needs to clean their liver, but in my case, I was obviously being told to. Now, at before the gateway, I talked about in the experience at the New Mexico White Sands, I got my period right after being in that sand, and I also purged. So I was also, like, imagine I had shed the liver, I think about 2 weeks before the gathering. Then I shed my lining of my womb. Then I threw up everything. And then, so as I stepped into the gateway, I would have been at ovulation. I was at the space of being receptive. Okay. And this is the part that I find just mind blowing. All of these things that we talk about in the steps of ascension, they are mimicked and replicated in every way of life. Like, this is our natural rhythm. Like, of course, if I am going to embody the Christos seed, I have to be fertile. I have to be ready to receive that. Like, I have to have purged my lining, which I hadn't had a period for 6 months before that period in New Mexico. So I had to get to the place where my body was actually physically ready to receive this energy. So I had cleansed the liver, and I had been working on the blood filtering, and my womb was ready to receive it. So I had the dream. So yes, all of it was aligned and moving forward. But I will say, in real time, I remember just being like, wow, that's weird. I'm getting a period after 6 months, kind of like that. But in hindsight, now I'm like, oh, I see it. Okay. So then, right after the gateway, the day I got sick, the actual day that I got sick, the day that my cousin and my aunt left, I got another period. Now, here's the interesting thing. That would have been on track. Like, it would have, as if I was having a normal cycle again. It was due. So it was just the day of the day I got sick. So purging again. Then I through that 2 weeks, I was sick. Okay. The period lasted long. It was like a week. Then I started getting better. And on the new moon, exactly 1 week ago, I got another period. Now, this was 2 weeks early. But again, I'm purging again. Like, I have had 3 purges since encountering the white sand that told me it was the activation for this experience. So my point is, like, I have been just shedding so that I can receive more of myself. Now, this experience, and what does this even mean to embody the Christos light? This is the part that I am... why I wouldn't normally do this episode this soon after the experience. I don't know. I feel it as this energy that's like dripping down, but it's not like I'm a different person today. It feels like it's a physical activation. It feels like my whole body is changing again. I went through the last 6 months, which I think it corresponded with the eclipse season. It would have been in March, end of March. I started gaining weight pretty rapidly. Rapidly. I had gained, let's say, 15 pounds within, I don't know, a month period. And I was like, that's really strange. And no matter how I would eat, it was just like I had gained it. And it was around my stomach area. And normally for me, my body is like, my waist isn't where I normally gain weight. I gain it in my butt, my legs, my arms. So the fact that it was right around my stomach, I was like, well, maybe menopause. Like, you guys know, I'm also going through that. So I'm like, that maybe that's the reason, and it just is what it is. But since this has happened, and since this me like getting sick and purging more the mucus out of my body, I mean, of course I was sick, so I wasn't eating, but my body, like that stomach that I was holding, it's like gone. It's like all of a sudden, it's that again, I had created a fertile environment that is no longer needed. And it just like, it's like different. It just, and it wasn't that I really changed eating. Yes, I was sick, so I probably wasn't eating as much, but it's like, I'd never have given physical birth in this life, but I imagine like a lot of women after they give birth, their body just exhales a lot of the weight. So that's happened as well. It's something that I am, wait, I do have another story that goes with this. When I was creating my new altar, and I shared that with you guys, Zaneta said to me, the reason that you have the dragon and the bees, like you're again, like this is how I'm going to say it. She probably didn't use these words, but she said like, you're not, the things that you're doing aren't what they're for, or something like that. It was like, you don't understand why you're doing that yet, which I felt intuitive to do it. And I was calling in the energies that were coming to me, again, as outside of me. Remember, the dragon had come in. The bees had recently come into my life. And it was like, yes, I want them represented now. Like, I want them here. So I did it as an expression outside of myself, right? And again, now I can see this very clearly. This is how we incorporate. We have to first see it as a mirror to then receive it as you. So I had to create my mirror, and with my dragon mirror, and have it a space for me to start like pulling in these energies in a new way. So the first thing I will say is in Zaneta's new book, the Shekinah Codex, I think it's chapter 4 if I remember, or it might be 4. She talks about the elements and the body, and how, and I've heard this, that we are the elements, but the way that it's described in this book, it's like flipped to a place where you live it, you experience and like all of the things, again, I had as outside of me, like, how do I incorporate the wind? And I've been through some crazy wind recently where I've had to learn how to incorporate that. It's a power that this body did not know before. But that's an example of understanding where is your wind in the body and how do you like express it out. And so each element is just so important to our experience of embodiment. And when I created the altar, I had enlivened each of my directions with the elements. And then I understand that the dragon energy is, again, it's me. I'm the dragon. And I'm saying this from a place of, I've been looking outside of myself at it. And it's like, after this experience of this shedding and embodying this Christos energy, the things that are coming to me, again, it feels intuitively, but I don't know yet how to bring it to my mind and like speak it, is that there's a dragon and there's also this energy of Sophia. And it's just, and I know they're the same thing. It's just a symbol of the same thing, and the Shekinah. And I'm going to also put in here, while I was sick is when I finished reading the Shekinah Codex. So all of this stuff has been in my sphere at exactly the right times. And what's so weird is it doesn't matter. Yes, perfect timing. So I'm like getting these messages about these elements, but instead of them being a guide, understanding that this is my energy. And it's like, okay. I have a lot to incorporate still and understand, but this energy of embodying something that consciously, that probably I've carried, obviously since I have kept stepping into this experience, has now made itself conscious to me. And again, I'm going through the physical journey of it right now, but I also know that with this comes more responsibility and being brave. Like in this case, like I can't give you a full form podcast of this is what it means. But I think that's the point. I think that it's like, give them what you have, show them what you are right now. And again, so that you can see it as a reflection to one day embody it for yourself.